Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, everybody. A weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. Here we speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. My name is Nicholas Razzo, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez. Ray, give it up for the Hispanic Patriots. Welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast.
All right. I'm channeling my inner McConaughey today.
We all could use that now and again.
All right. Well, welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, where faith, family, and freedom aren't just slogans. They're the foundation. I'm your host, Hugo Chavez Ray, and along with your co-host, Nicholas Razzo, we welcome
everybody.
you to another edition of this Hispanic Patriot Podcast. Growing not by leaps and bounds, but by growing nevertheless. And we trust the Lord to guide us and help us grow. So I'm a veteran, I'm a patriot, and your conservative voice for truth right here in the Centennial State. Got a lot to cover tonight. And unfortunately, we're going to start with a somber topic. As most of you in Colorado and around the country probably know, we had this cowardly and horrific attack in Boulder, where this cowardly terrorist decided to attack elderly folks who are peacefully protesting the hostages that are still being held by Hamas. And they've been doing this protest apparently peacefully on Sundays for quite a while. And this time, I'm just going to say it, this animal decided to attack innocent elderly folks. And you can't get any more cowardly than that. And not only that, but he did it in Boulder, of course, because in Boulder, they don't believe in guns. So that just goes to show you how stupid that agenda is, that they want to disarm us. But I'll turn it over to you, Nick. You got some information about this, and let's take a look at what we got.
We do. And we also made a short video about this that you guys can find on our website. And you guys are watching that right now. So here we have it, unfortunately so.
You have any sound?
Oh.
You got to turn that sound on the initial share.
Got it.
That little button on the right, lower right.
My apologies. That's because the video is not on Google.
It doesn't matter. Hit the on the share screen. Turn on the. Here, I'll see if I can do it.
All right.
No, that's not on here.
Well, I think we can all see this, though, right here, is that this man, clearly deranged, actually shirtless at the time.
Okay.
Everyone had to drop what they had, unfortunately. Yep. And this animal that we saw here, shirtless, screaming at people after he committed the act itself. I mean, this is absolutely absurd. And right here in our hometown. And again, this was a targeted attack. This should be said that this man was an illegal immigrant from Egypt. He had no right to be in this country, let alone attack our citizens. You can take it away, Hugo, of what you think about this terrorist.
What comes to mind to me is that ridiculous statement by our illustrious cowardly governor, who came out and basically didn't want to call it a terrorist attack, didn't want to label it what it was, Um, Thankfully, we have leadership now at the FBI, um, but that immediately called it a terrorist attack, which is what it is, unlike the last administration who would have not done that, because their excuse is always, well, we don't want to jump the gun and call it a terrorist attack. Oh, really? Well, you tell me what it was, a picnic in the park? Give me a break, but Polis, as usual, he's a coward, and he disgusts me every time he has a statement on anything of importance. So I'm gonna let that go because I'm gonna my blood is gonna start boiling.
Yeah, we want to stay positive here because this is our fellow state citizens. These are people who should be, we should look at as, our family because we live in the same place in the same state. Many of these people were probably liberals. We here on the Hispanic Patriot don't care. If foreigners attack Americans, we do not ask what their political affiliation is. They're just Americans.
Yeah, and I have Jewish friends who are not liberals and who have consistently been against the Biden administration and people on the left who want to, every time you turn around, they want to condemn Israel and the Zionists and talk about Hamas and how they're the victims and all of this. It's just baloney propaganda that they like to put out, and it's not true, and it never will be true. I don't care how much they repeat it. I don't care how much they have these campus protests. These are, let's be real now. All these protests that we see, these are organized, paid protests. These are not organic protests that arise. Now, they may have people that blindly follow the agitators, but the agitators, make no mistake about it, are paid people who are paid to go around starting these riots and protests. And you know how I know that? Because I've seen several videos where the same individuals show up on screen. Now, either these people are just filthy rich and they can travel to state to state and show up and do nothing, but protest.
Not horrifically likely.
Yeah, not very likely. So at any rate, we have to be aware of what's going on. And I hope this other issue that's come up now, the Homeland Security detained his entire family and have them up for expedited deportation. And of course, we got right away a judge that stepped in and blocked
the order.
The order, but I think the Supreme Court is getting ready to finally slap all of that down, and the decision recently is a good sign that came out from the Supreme Court that talked about the power of the president to dismiss federal agency employees and or executives, which had been blocked, and the Supreme Court ruled that the president has absolute authority over all federal agencies and can fire anybody he damn well pleases. So I was happy to see that. That's going to unhandcuff that. And I believe this one decision is going to come down real soon about these activist judges who issue nationwide injunctions from liberal strongholds, and I think that's going to finally get resolved. So I'm praying for that to get done real soon, because this is
absolutely
every time the president turns around and wants to do something for the people, you got some idiot that finds a judge. Oh, we're going to block that.
Well, at this point, though, it's costing lives. That's why it's unacceptable. It's costing lives, and it's costing American lives. That's what needs to be pushed out constantly. As I said in the short, Americans can no longer tolerate illegal immigration. And I want to say one thing, because I have many friends who don't support Israel. There's a lot of Republicans these days, especially young Republicans who do not support Israel, in some cases actively oppose Israel, that is not an excuse for violence, and that is not an excuse to fail to condemn violence against our fellow Americans. We cannot be nationalists and claim that some Americans are less Americans than others. That's just not how this works. That's not how a republic functions. There are some people who don't care about being American. This guy was not an American. He was a foreign terrorist targeting people by their religion based on conflicts halfway around the world. That's not how this would ever be tolerated.
And it was reported that he has, I don't know if it's affiliation or support of the Muslim Brotherhood.
And that's, you remember that organization being so well known during the Obama years, it was flushed down the memory hole as if it doesn't exist anymore. Just because ISIS has been defeated by our Donald Trump, by our president, it should be said, just because we defeated ISIS doesn't mean these people aren't still trying to establish their worldwide caliphate. People forget that.
And the other thing is, you know, I don't have a problem with people peacefully protesting. Okay, I may disagree with what they're protesting. And some of these young people that you mentioned that are pro-Israel, I believe that they're just misinformed people. That's my opinion. I don't think they're just going along with the masses or the people in their circle of influence, so to speak.
And in both sides, you see this as well. The fact you see this in both sides, that everyone's just following whatever their friends are saying rather than actually looking at their principles. Look at your principles when it comes to Israel. And remember that there's not a binary solution either. It's not just one state, two state. There's so many cultural questions, so many political questions. Israel's a complex place and country. It's not so simple as these people good, these people bad. That is what creates violence. And I'm so tired of it, Hugo. I'm so tired of the world's violent problems coming here in America. That is why we need to protect our borders.
Well, Charlie Kirk has done a good job of exposing some of these young people with their ignorant rhetoric that they spew out. And, you know,
my old friend Charlie.
That always inspires me when I see him going to the college campuses and these brainwashed young people repeat the same jargon all the time. It's, you know, it's their false narratives. It's, you know, Israel's out to kill
get everybody,
Palestinians, blah, blah, blah. And
there are some people that believe that. I mean, there are some people in Israel that believe in these extremist rhetorics, but they are not the majority at all. And actually, I'm going to shout out Charlie here. Charlie Kirk actually has a very nuanced opinion on Israel because while he supports their right to exist, he ultimately is a Christian above all things and doesn't believe that we should just do whatever Israel says we should do. And Donald Trump is proving that. Donald Trump is showing through his support or lack of support to Israel at different times, hey, you guys need to tone it down. You guys need to save civilian lives. You guys need to follow the rules. Donald Trump is a very good moderator for the world. He is for America. He is not a puppet of Israel. I'm so tired of people saying, oh, Donald Trump's a puppet of Israel. I think Donald Trump's a puppet of only one person, his own heart, like a real man always is.
Yep. All right. So we'll see how this develops. But in closing, I'm in favor of deporting the entire family.
Yeah, I mean, these people often work with their families, so you got to understand how these people operate. It is what it is.
Yep. All right, so you had some information about a election somewhere over there in Poland?
We did, absolutely. And Donald Trump's geopolitics once again winning, because I don't know if you know this, actually, Kristi Noem herself went over to Poland in order to advocate for the gentleman who won, a Trump ally, a person who is well known that opposed the enshrinement of abortion in the Polish Constitution, which we in Colorado can definitely
These are the latest
appreciate.
headlines. Karol Nawrocki has won Poland's presidential election following the final vote count by the National Electoral Commission. Representing the Law and Justice Party, Nawrocki secured 50.89% of the vote, narrowly defeating Civic Coalition candidate Rafał Trzaskowski, who received 49.11%. Nawrocki is set to be sworn into office on August 6th in 2 months' time. The result overturned early exit polls, which had pointed to a Trzaskowski lead. However, projections released late in the evening shifted the picture, with
Well, we
Nawrocki
heard that
ultimately
before.
pulling ahead. According to the Electoral Commission, Nawrocki received his strongest support in southeastern Poland, where 71% of voters backed the Law and Justice candidate. Trzaskowski performed best in the West, where he secured 58% in one of the country's most liberal regions. The vote underscored a clear East-West divide. Now, Trzaskowski led in the western part of the country, while Nawrocki dominated in the east. While Nawrocki won the majority of ballots cast within Poland, Trzaskowski received broad support from voters abroad. More than 63% of the Polish diaspora voted for the Civic Coalition candidate. Meanwhile, results from polling stations abroad in Poland's presidential runoff have been released. Let's take a look. In the United States, Karol Nawrocki received 56.65% of the vote with over 28,000 ballots cast. Rafał Trzaskowski received 43.35% with over 21,000 votes. The gap was even wider in Canada, where Nawrocki secured 62.04%, while Trzaskowski received 37.96%.
Well, look at that. And what that says is that nationalism is very popular in North America. We have American Poles, Canadian Poles voting for the nationalist candidate. Again, this man stood against abortion and against weakness, the idea of rolling over to the establishment, doing whatever the bigger powers say. The idea of your country matters is coming back in the world big time. America has led the charge of it by electing Donald Trump, and now we're seeing a key Trump ally in the heart of the EU. The reason this is so important, Hugo, Poland has now the biggest military force in the EU. So when our guy is in charge of Poland, the Europeans are going to start listening to Americans more because their main shield is toting the line that we have together.
Well, this just goes to poke a huge hole in the narrative by the left that America is a laughing stock in the world because of our election of Donald Trump. I'm sorry, but it's quite the opposite.
People are inspired all over the world. We see this in India. J.D. Vance had a great reception. Their president is an Indian nationalist. The president in Poland now, and it should be said, because they have a prime minister and a president, their other guy is more liberal. So now Poland has a good balance of somebody who is a strong Trump supporter and somebody who's a strong supporter of Europe.
And let's not forget the pro-Trump rallies in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Who are
well, I love Trump in the UK.
Who are basically wanting their country back because the Muslims have been trying to take it over, and they've made great inroads over there because of stupid policies by Biden-like politicians who wanted to appease the Muslims, and now the Muslims, you gave them a foot in the door, and they're trying to take over that country.
Well, not just take over, but establish, we need to say this, rape gangs across the cities of Great Britain. This was suppressed. This used to be something you weren't allowed to say 10 years ago, but it's absolutely true.
Well, they have laws in right now. There's some laws in the UK right now that they're arresting people that are speaking out against the government's policies and or anti-Muslim rhetoric. They're literally arresting people for free speech,
defending their own culture and you know what's crazy? When the King of England holds the title Defender of the Faith. Oh, I'm sorry, he changed that to Defender of the Faiths.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't know what the point of the Anglican Church is anymore at that point. But you know, we see if we allow this to take root in America, that is how we will be like in Great Britain. Attacks all over the place. Gangs of violators. That's why we got to start really hard. You got to stamp down what happened in Boulder. There's a reason we did the revolution, folks. And the biggest overall reason, we knew that our development would suffer under Great Britain. We knew we had infinite potential on this beautiful continent, and we weren't going to let some country as small as Britain tell us how big we could be.
Yep.
And this is why.
Great news from Poland, and we look forward to having
Poland being Polish for many more centuries.
Amen. All right, let's roll into some Colorado topics. And basically, what I want to start with is the 2025 budget scam. Let's talk about your tax dollars.
Everyone wants to hear about that.
the Colorado legislature just passed a bloated 2025 budget that they're calling balanced. Okay. But here's what they don't want you to know. While families are getting crushed by rising housing costs, the state quietly approved millions in raises for government employees. And this all during a time when we're facing a projected revenue shortfall.
Scandalous.
So let me ask, who's tightening their belts here, the bureaucrats or the taxpayers? Obviously, it's always us, the taxpayers, who take the brunt while these unscrupulous and downright corrupt politicians keep stealing our tax money. And I just want to know and ask this question: when is enough going to be enough for the people of Colorado? I mean, how much longer do we put up with these socialist, Marxist, and downright communists who basically wanted to continue destroying this state? Are you going to stand up for what you believe in, or are you going to continue to be a doormat to these despots? That's a strong question, and that's exactly how I feel. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent. I don't care. You better wake up, because if you don't, pretty soon there won't be anything to wake up to in this state.
They're literally spending all your money. Well, they know you can't afford it. There is no care by these people, for the people who pay their salaries. You know, if we are all too poor to pay their salaries, they would milk us for that last little drop too. That's why you need to be involved. I think we can agree with that, Hugo. The people need to be involved and constantly be asking their people questions, the people who supposedly are in charge of them. The only way you're going to get in charge of the people who think they're in charge of you is to remind them that you're the boss.
And what we're asking is it's not
nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. Basically, you don't have to be a political junkie or anything. Just pay attention to what these politicians are doing to you, the taxpayers, what they're doing to the state. And every time you turn around, they want more and more and more. And it's just beyond the pale. This past legislative session is probably the worst in my lifetime here in Colorado.
That's really saying something, folks. And we will be getting into all the reasons that it's absolutely terrible.
So let's dive into some of that.
Let's do that then, unfortunately.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the worst bills you didn't hear about. Let's talk about the damage done during this year's session. So here's a few bills that should outrage every freedom-loving Colorado. And I lump Democrats in there too, because I believe that there are freedom-loving Democrats who are just too stubborn to vote for something different until maybe it's too late. But let's start with HB 25-1249. That's the firearm magazine ban. Expansion limits Second Amendment rights under the guise of safety, while criminals continue to ignore the law. Now, the legislature basically signed in, or had Governor Polis sign into law the most egregious anti-Second Amendment law in the country. I am going to play Nostradamus here. And I'm going to predict that the Supreme Court is going to slap Polis down like the little whiny, you know what?
Hugo, you got to be careful, because he might enjoy that. All right, we don't know. Well, we know so many proclivities that he had, including shredding every libertarian credential that he had in this legislative session. I mean, it must be a sign that the people who want to run for president in the Democrat Party think that they need to go even further left.
Well, they're
lost.
The one thing that they're looking at with green eyes is Tabor. They desperately want to get rid of Tabor, and that's the one thing that's standing in their way from completely destroying this state. And I'm hopeful that the voters are paying attention to that one. So that Second Amendment law, I predict, will be slapped down by Supreme Court.
Yes.
Now, SB 25093, forced electrification mandates, pushes expensive electrification on buildings, which is a win for green lobbyists and a loss for working families. So what it amounts to is they want to do away with natural gas, which is inexpensive, effective, and efficient.
And what most people need to live in the mountains.
Yep. And they want to electrify everything as if electricity isn't expensive enough as it is.
As if electricity grows on trees.
Yeah, it does.
And these environmentalists, right? These are environmentalist leftists who do these kind of things. Never forget, folks, one hand in the Democrat Party washes the other. Just because they have built-in ideological beliefs and their pretty party platforms does not mean they won't shred it in an instant to make money and force you to give them money.
Yep. And you know what the kicker is?
Oh, what's the kicker? We already got the punchline.
These greenies don't understand. They're anti-fossil fuel, but they want to electrify everything. Where do they think electricity comes from?
You know, I got an idea for these people who hate fossil fuels so much. If they hate fossil fuels, given that their ideology is as old as a dinosaur, maybe they should stop running it. They should stop using it and take their own advice and stop being hypocrites.
What was the name of the town in the Flintstones? That's where they need to go, so they can paddle their feet with their car and just basically, have no electricity, no cell phones, no tires, no computers.
Well, I mean, for the Flintstones, I mean, that would be kind of nice. But I think that when it's full of liberals, I think the town's name is Dumb F Wordistan.
Bedrock.
I think
Bedrock.
Bedrock. There we go. Bedrock. I prefer Dumb F Wordistan, but I guess that's what we're sending the Egyptian terrorist to and his family.
Yep. Well, I mean, Fred and Wilma had more brains than some of these people in the legislature. I guarantee.
No, I would definitely, facts. Like cavemen often had. Hey, they knew how to survive. That's more than a lot of these Democrats know how to do, and have babies, and they knew what genders were.
Absolutely.
Back in the day.
Let's talk about this. This next one. This one is the one.
Speaking about gender identity,
people are really going to be up in arms about.
Rightfully up in arms.
The gender identity, it's HB 25-1302. The gender identity autonomy in schools allows minors to change gender identity without parental control. And that's not counting 1312, which criminalizes misgendering your children. So as an example, and this is a breakdown of how this law is supposed to work. So say I'm a parent and I have a child in school and the kid comes home and says, "Hey, Dad, I'm a girl." And I say, "No, you're not, son. You're a boy." He goes and cries to the school. The school notifies the authorities. They come arrest me and take my boy from me. Okay, that's basically in a nutshell what that bill says they want to do.
It's really disgusting, and it's actually beyond disgusting.
If they want World War III, I dare them to start doing that to parents, because I have a sneaky suspicion that I don't care what party you're affiliated with, if the government comes to your house and wants to take your children from you, are you going to stand there and let them? I don't think so.
Everyone's biological evolutionary instincts will tell them not to, and that's why Child Protective Services is honestly a brutal, horrible organization for the most part. We've had stories on this show, nothing but negative. I've never heard a positive story in this regard. Usually, if there's positive stories like that, it's from law enforcement saving people, mostly trafficking victims, stuff like that. Literally 0.1% of the population. That is not enough to justify laws which enter your family and destroy it. No more than the abortion exceptions allow mass murder of children. The government should have no right to interfere in your family. It's your family, your culture, your rules. That is what every person has understood about their home. That's why we have the name in Latin, domos, the home, the domain. Domain means your place. If it's not your place, you have no freedom. We fought the revolution for no reason. We have overlords that can go into your house and tell you your family's going to be this way. That's tyranny to the extreme.
Yeah, and I have a sneaky suspicion that the sheriffs in this state are not going to be enforcing that law.
No, many have already announced that they will not.
Including
shout out to Mr. Roybal, Sheriff Roybal of El Paso County, who is doing a fantastic job of not enforcing literally unconstitutional, brutal, tyrannical laws. Much appreciated.
And they shouldn't. A lot of people don't understand that.
That's why the sheriff's elections matter too.
The sheriff is one of the most powerful law enforcement in the country.
He's a make or break in terms of who your election person is, like who your person to be elected is.
People need to read up on sheriffs and what a sheriff's power can do, and it's very interesting and soothing at the same time, because we know that most sheriffs fall to the conservative side. We do have some liberal ones, but they
live in very nice areas that don't have a lot of crime, weirdly. Funny how that always works.
Yeah. All right. So
next bad law.
The next bad law that we had in this past session is SB 25. That's a Senate bill, -157, where they want to...
For anyone who didn't know the SB versus HB, now you do.
Statewide rent control reduces housing supply and raises rent long term. Now,
rent controls that don't work because they just tack on fees, and that's how they keep the rent increasing. It's the easiest thing to overcome in the world. But thanks for doing it, guys, right?
I mean, what happened to free enterprise?
We chucked that out the window a long time ago when the government could shut down businesses for the sniffles.
Well, the bottom line is free enterprise should rule in all cases. Okay, if I have a house for rent in a neighborhood, and I arbitrarily have the rent for that house exponentially higher than the other houses in that neighborhood,
no one's going to want to rent from you.
Nobody's going to want to rent from me. But if the government steps in and says, okay, all of these houses must charge X by edict.
That's not a maximum price anymore. It's a minimum price.
Exactly. And so they think that they're doing people a favor, but in fact, they're not, because you know what's going to happen? All those people that own those rental homes, they're going to sell them and be done with it. And then there won't be enough rental properties to go around for the people that need the rent.
No, exactly.
That's the exact opposite of what takes place. And you can go to any major city in the country where rent control has been established and see the results.
Or any communist country, because that's the idea. I mean, and this isn't even proper rent controls, because proper rent controls set the prices in an almost communistic system where the entire, your entire living situation is basically controlled by the state. So this is a kind of half, baked measure that isn't going to work. Again, I actually saw the results of this law that we just got a washer dryer fee. That's all that they did. And that's very easy to get around. And again, it's not, it's kind of a modest increase. If people want to, complain about rental prices, go to California, go to Chicago, and then come back to me and then complain about our beautiful Colorado Springs. I think we're doing pretty well. Let's be honest, the only reason that they did this law is to help developers and put money in the pockets of their friends.
Bingo.
We got to go right to the root.
Don't take our word for it. Go do some research on some of these cities. New York.
Maybe Google the Carmen line also for our own city. You know about that.
Yep. So
Vote
Be
no
aware.
against the Carmen line, folks. No on the Carmen line.
And the insanity march is on. The next one, HB 25-1120, speech sensitivity in government regulates discriminatory language, which is a backdoor attack on free speech.
That's unfortunate. I had this entire list of slurs I was going to read off.
So let's analyze here what we're seeing, okay? Attack on the family, attack on free enterprise, and now attack on free speech. Now,
we'll take your guns, take your kids, and won't let you say anything about it.
If this is not communistic, I don't know what the hell is.
Well, okay. You're lucky and very smart, Hugo, because it is, in fact, communistic.
Okay, so my question to the audience out there and those of you paying attention is, what are you going to do about it? How much longer are you going to vote for these cretins that want to basically just take over and put you in your place, so to speak? How much longer are you going to put up with it? The next election that comes around, are you going to vote for these idiots that just put through all this stuff?
These guys literally kick us in the huevos every single day. Let's just stop voting for them. Again, that's what we need to do. Stop voting for these guys and follow your local Republicans to make sure they're not Democrats in sheep's clothing.
Yep. Now, the next segment basically is a result of all of this, which is these politicians who think that law and order is too, how should we call it, too patriarchal or too controlling.
I think it leads to too few holes in the citizenry. Holes in the not ventilated citizenry enough for them.
Let's give the criminals the rights that belong to the law-abiding citizens.
Well, when they say nobody is above the law, they mean that nobody is above the law. If you're nobody to them, you don't get any law.
So while all of this has been taking place, crime and chaos in Colorado, the legislature focused on green energy mandates and woke education policies. Violent crime in Denver surged again. And don't believe any of these idiots that say that crime has not surged in Denver. It has.
Yeah.
We're now ranked among the most dangerous major metro areas in the nation. Okay? But instead of funding police or increasing penalties, our lawmakers are decriminalizing drugs, cutting jail time, and prioritizing criminal equity, whatever the hell that means. Colorado doesn't need social experiments. We need law and order. And any politician that is not for true law and order should not be worthy of your vote.
Agreed.
Because the order of business for any government is to protect its citizens. And these people on the left, it's the last thing on their agenda. They want to protect their pocketbooks. They want to protect their donors, the people that, put them in office and keep them in office. And that's who they are beholden to. So pay attention, folks.
Well, I got nothing else to say but to steal one of your lines, Hugo. Yep.
Exactly.
That was perfect.
So this next one is right along those lines. Parents versus politicians. Jeffco and Boulder County school districts are moving forward with radical gender affirming policies, some of which shut parents out completely. Okay, you heard me. And parents won't even be told if their child changes their gender identity at school. This isn't just wrong, it's dangerous.
We need to really be clear about this, that this trans stuff is religious in nature. It's almost barely sexual. What does sex have to do with cutting off your body parts? What does sex have to do with believing that you're a different gender? I don't think this has anything to do with sexuality, and therefore it has nothing to do with education. This is a sort of religious belief. And actually, Hugo, I don't know if you know this, back in the day, there used to be crazy cultist people in places like Russia and the Middle East who would literally mutilate themselves, cut off their body parts because they believed it brought them closer to God. This is an actual human misery in the brain that occurs.
What
and
God
we
is that?
tolerate it. Right? I don't know what God it is, but it certainly isn't Christ. But a lot of these people thought they were Christians even. There were some of these people who thought they were Christians. They were really wackadoodles. But we're seeing a secularized version of this.
Unfortunately, there's been a lot of insanity perpetrated under the guise of Christianity.
Well, if you want a fun little Google, people, you got some homework. Google the public universal friend. Public universal friend. That was a woman who declared herself non-gender in about, I think this was the 1700s actually, and said that her name was now the public universal friend, and that's what she would be to all. Guys, secularized heretical Christianity, like Christianity that's just flat out wrong, is actually, without the religious part, a lot of the basis of Democrat belief systems. If you dig into it, you will find it. That's why authentic, true Christianity, true Christian brotherhood is where it's at, not political affirming and gay flags in churches.
Well, what's really interesting is that the politicization of all of this, the agenda, basically, it's basically part of the big picture. The big picture for Marxists and globalists is what? The destruction of the family. That's the first. Destruction of faith, and the destruction of private property rights. So
it's all in the Communist Manifesto right down there, enumerated.
Exactly. So, what we need to do as citizens is threefold. We need to take over school board elections. We need to go back and take over those school boards. We need to
100%.
Implement school choice legislation, and we need to file constitutional lawsuits because the state doesn't own our kids. Okay.
Absolutely.
And everybody should be wary of what these leftists want to do. And if this doesn't boil your blood, then you don't have any blood.
Yeah.
Okay. You're just a cadaver, because if somebody tells you that they're going to take your kids, you better believe them.
Well, Hugo, unfortunately, I just had an observation that a lot of these people don't have kids. And a lot of the biggest world leaders don't have kids. And I think this is a terrible shame, because it means that they don't have empathy for families in the same way. So, just because you don't have children does not mean you cannot be a parental figure. You should seek out people to mentor, especially in your family. It is.
I'm speaking specifically to the parents, because they're the targets. So I don't care. Once again, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, unaffiliated, or whatever the hell you want to call yourself. If you have children, you better be paying attention to this.
Exactly. Topic. And if you don't know where to start, shout out to Moms for Liberty, friends of the show, who've been on the show in several capacities. Go reach out to Moms for Liberty if you don't have anywhere to start, nowhere to go. You want to protect your kids. They're a great group of moms who will absolutely help you.
Yep. So, as a matter, interesting enough, tomorrow at the Denver GOP monthly breakfast, First Friday breakfast, we have a speaker on the Colorado for Kids group. And so it's going to be interesting to hear her give a speech about what's going on with that. Now, this one really warms my heart, because it's something I've been.
This is a big one, folks. This is a very big one. Listen up here.
The rise of the Hispanic Conservative. Okay. Now here's the good news. Hispanic voters are done being used as political pawns. We love God, we love family, and we know communism when we see it, because many of our families have fled it. From Adams County to Colorado Springs, our community is waking up. And that's why this podcast exists, to equip you with the facts and the fire to fight back. We're calling on all Hispanic citizens to rise up and make your voices heard, and show these leftists that we are not going to be pushed around. We are proud Americans, and we want our country back. We want our freedoms back. We want the government to stay the hell out of our business and to stay the hell out of our families. We will raise our kids the way we see fit. And this is a memo to all you politicians who may be watching out there. If you think you're going to win this, think again.
Very nice, Hugo. And I love that because we in the Hispanic community, guys, I want to just share a quick story that when I was, young Hispanic man in Illinois, the amount of racism and hatred that I saw, genuine hatred for Hispanic interest in conservatism, was massive. They thought that they owned us. We can never forget that. They thought that they owned us, just like they physically did own the Black community. We have to understand that this is the kind of mentality that this Democrat Party holds. The Democrat Party fought for slavery. The Democrat Party started the Mexican-American War. The Democrat Party has been responsible for more misery for the Hispanic community in this country than any other political force. Far more than Republicans, far more than even foreign actors. And in our countries that our families came from, in Hispanic America, the communism that was fought throughout the Cold War was not a joke. These people murdered priests. They burned down churches. Che Guevara was an animal. They even hated homosexuals, if that's your thing. They had no respect for human agency because communism is a religion that denies the agency of humanity, believes we are all materialistic creatures bound by evolution to form into communist blocks. It's an absurd religion, folks. We reject it because our religion is Christianity, is Christ. We do not gel or vibe with communism because it denies our very souls.
Well said. So we're going to close out this segment. Here's what I want you to do. You out in the audience, those of you watching and able to share this. Join your local GOP, run for school board or precinct leader, and share this podcast with someone who needs a wake-up call. And there's a lot of people out there that need that wake-up call.
And if they don't need a wake-up call, to know that they're not alone.
And that's not to say that those people that need a wake-up call are bad people. They're just
not at all.
They're just not informed.
Sometimes they're the best people, and we need them.
Sometimes it takes somebody to just prod somebody and let them know, hey, this is going on. You need to pay attention. You need to join a movement. At least do your part, in trying to fight back. And I think
why not it be the American First movement then? That's the best one here in America.
Yep. All right. So we're going to segue. As you know, last week we had our tribute to Phil Robertson show.
Duck Dynasty's fame.
There's just so much, to cover with that family that you couldn't just do it in one show. But this week there was the funeral for Phil. And we want to close out the show with information about what took place in Louisiana this week, honoring Phil, his legacy, and for those that loved him and cared about his mission. I want to share this part with you.
Rise and they fall. They rise and they fall. They rot from within. There's a little word that we seldom use. I know you're throwing it around all the time, but I don't hear it coming out of the news media.
In the final days of Phil Robertson's life, there was a quiet stillness that settled over the family home. Phil, known for his robust health and larger-than-life personality, had grown weaker in recent weeks. Those close to him described the atmosphere as a blend of peaceful reflection and profound sadness. The man who had always been the rock of the Robertson family was now resting, surrounded by those he loved most.
I just wanted to pause a minute. Pay attention to the people you're seeing here. This is the guy they called a racist. Some people were calling a racist. And look at the tribute coming from Black citizens in Monroe, Louisiana.
His wife, Miss Kay, was by his side through it all, her calm presence a steadying force. Friends and family took turns visiting, creating a constant circle of care and companionship. Though his body was frail, Phil's spirit remained strong, filled with the same faith that had carried him through life's many trials. The family knew the inevitable was near, but they cherished each moment, holding on to the quiet beauty of being together. These final days were less about pain and more about grace, love, and gratitude for a life well lived. Family was everything to Phil, and in these last moments, the Robertson household was alive with love and memories. Willie, Jace, Corey, and the grandchildren all gathered around, sharing stories and laughter to celebrate the man who had been their guiding light. Despite the heaviness of the moment, there was an undeniable sense of unity, a testament to the legacy Phil had built. Miss Kay, ever the pillar of strength, organized family prayers and moments of reflection, anchoring everyone in their shared faith. The room was filled with soft voices and the warmth of familiar faces, as if Phil's presence had summoned the entire family closer. Friends from the Duck Dynasty days and longtime neighbors also stopped by, offering support and gratitude. This gathering wasn't just a farewell, it was a living tribute to the patriarch who had shaped so many lives. Each person present felt the weight of the moment, but also the honor of witnessing this final chapter with a man who had touched so many hearts. Phil Robertson's faith had always been at the center of his life, and in his final days, it shone even brighter. Those close to him recall how often he spoke of God's promises, finding comfort in Scripture and prayer. Miss Kay read passages aloud, sometimes quietly to herself, other times with the family gathered around. Phil's unwavering belief in eternal life gave everyone hope amid the sorrow. He was known for saying that this world was only a temporary stop on a much longer journey, and now, as his earthly life came to a close, that belief brought him peace. Family members described moments when Phil's eyes would light up as he spoke, of heaven, reminding them to live with purpose and courage. His faith wasn't just a private matter, it was a legacy he passed down through the generations, inspiring countless fans worldwide. In these last days, faith was both a comfort and a guiding light, helping the family navigate the grief while celebrating the promise of reunion. In the quiet hours, Phil shared intimate moments with his children and grandchildren. Willie remembers, sitting by his father's bedside, holding his hand, and hearing stories he hadn't told before. Tales of his youth, lessons learned in the bayou, and words of wisdom about life and faith. These conversations were tender, filled with a mixture of laughter, tears, and the deep love that had always connected them. Phil's voice, though softer now, carried the weight of a lifetime of experience and hope. He reminded them to stay true to their values and to love one another fiercely. The grandchildren, too, had their moments, whispering, "I love you," and sharing quiet prayers. These final exchanges were a gift, a passing of the torch from one generation to the next. Family members describe these times as sacred, a reminder that even in the face of death, love remains unbroken. Phil's final words were not about fear, but about hope, faith, and the strength of family bonds. Beyond the immediate family, a broader community gathered in support. Friends from Phil's many years on Duck Dynasty, hunting buddies, church members, and longtime neighbors all came to pay their respects. These visitors brought stories, laughter, and tears, celebrating a man whose influence reached far beyond his household. Many recalled Phil's kindness, humor, and unwavering loyalty. They spoke of his role as a mentor and friend, a man who never hesitated to help those in need. Church gatherings included special prayers and hymns sung in his honor, lifting the spirits of all who mourned. The community's presence offered the Robertson family comfort, a reminder that Phil's life was woven into the fabric of many hearts and homes. Even strangers who had been touched by his story reached out, sharing condolences and memories, as if time slowed to honor the moment. Phil's breathing became shallow, and though his body weakened, his eyes conveyed a serene acceptance. Miss Kay held his hand, whispering words of love and gratitude for the lifetime they shared. Willie, Jace, and other family members took turns by his side, offering comfort and sharing their final goodbyes. Tears flowed freely, but so did smiles, a recognition of the peace Phil had found and the legacy he left behind. Even in these last moments, his strength and faith were evident. The family's presence was a powerful testament to the love that had surrounded Phil throughout his life and now surrounded him in his passing. This farewell was not just a goodbye, but a sacred transition marked by grace and profound connection. In the days following Phil's passing, the family came together to reflect on his extraordinary life. Willie spoke about how his father's teachings would continue to guide them, reminding everyone to live with faith and courage. Miss Kay shared stories of their life together, the adventures, challenges, and unwavering love that defined their journey. Personal stories and reflections, painting a picture of a man who was humble, strong, and deeply devoted. Miss Kay delivered a touching eulogy, expressing gratitude for the years they spent together and the family they raised. Hymns and prayers filled the room, underscoring Phil's spiritual legacy. Fans from across the nation sent flowers, letters, and condolences, demonstrating the wide reach of his influence. The memorial was both a farewell and a celebration, honoring Phil's journey and the values he championed. It was a moment for the community to come together, sharing grief while lifting up the memory of a beloved patriarch. In the aftermath of their loss, the Robertson family has found strength in unity and purpose. Guided by Phil's example, they continue to honor his legacy through faith, family, and their work. Willie and Jace remain active in their public roles, often speaking about the lessons they learned from their father. Miss Kay, surrounded by her loved ones, embodies resilience and grace, reminding everyone of the power of love in healing. The grandchildren carry forward the traditions Phil cherished, ensuring that the values of faith, kindness, and courage remain alive. The family often gathers for prayer and remembrance, keeping Phil's memory a living presence in their daily lives. Though the pain of loss remains, the family looks forward with hope, grounded in the foundation Phil built. Their journey continues, inspired by the man who taught them to live boldly, love deeply, and face life's final journey with unwavering faith.
Great legacy that he leaves behind. It's just a testament to a man who came through the fire, so to speak. I had a chance to see the movie that they made about his life. And early on in his life, he was not a very nice man. And he speaks boldly of it. He was happy that the movie was made to show who he was and how he was, and then eventually what he became through the power of grace from God. And so I believe that God used him in his own way to bring thousands and thousands to Christ. They say God works in mysterious ways, but if you get a chance to see that movie, you should check it out. It's on, I think it was either Prime or Netflix. I can't remember. And if you have the app, if you download the app A&E, and you weren't a prior fan of the Duck Dynasty show, you can see the entire show from season 1 through 9, and it'll give you a great insight into that family and what exactly they were about. They started that show with hesitation, but then they quickly realized how many people they could reach and demonstrate the family unit and how important family was. And they prayed unapologetically on national TV despite protests from people. They were not going to change, and they gave all the glory to God. So
Absolutely.
I
And it seemed to have really affected you, Hugo. I have to make the observation that it seems to me that you identified a lot with Phil Robertson as an older conservative, someone who's been through it all and really come out strong. And so I just wanted to be probably a nice way to close out to say, what do you personally feel connected to Phil Robertson for?
Well, some of his early story. I mean, I was kind of a rebel in my younger age, and
all the best people are.
I went through a time in my life where I was away from the church, like a lot of people experience, and so I can relate. You know, I can't relate to being a redneck, but I do relate to the mentality and the way that they lived their lives.
Classically American.
Exactly. They were the quintessential American family from the South, unapologetic, and
frontier hunting, the whole bit.
That's right. His family, he grew up in a family that lived off the land, off the grid. I mean, they hunted for their food. They didn't have a lot when he was a kid, and so they had to go out and hunt for their dinner.
Well, and you can't even do that. That's illegal now. They don't let you do that kind of stuff now. But it really shows that you guys are a dying breed in that sense. Sadly,
depends on where you live. You can. There are places where you can still go hunt for your dinner.
There's still freedom out there. But it's really true that you guys in your age group have things that we need to cherish, that we need to preserve, because they're not being made right now. But they will be made again, because a young generation is being inspired by people like Phil Robertson and Hugo Chavez Rey.
Yep. And then the other thing is his brother Cy served in Vietnam. And when he came home, he didn't like his brother very much because of what he was doing and how he was treating Miss Kay and his family. And it involved alcohol. And he was hanging around with the wrong people until he hit rock bottom. And in the movie, it kind of, I don't want to give away all the details, but
you guys know how that is.
If you haven't seen the movie, it's called The Blind. Look it up and go watch it. I bought it on a streaming service, so it was $4. So it was $4 well spent.
We are not sponsored by Duck Dynasties. However, we will proudly accept a sponsorship from Duck Dynasties.
Yep. So I encourage you to look it up. If you haven't seen the show in the past, if you watch a couple episodes, you'll become a fan. Trust me.
There you go.
All right. That's all we have for tonight. It looks like we're at the end of our show.
Weekend is going to be awesome, Hugo. This weekend is going to be awesome. Saturday, Town Hall with Rebecca Kelty and Ken DeGraff. And on Sunday, if you guys are in HD 17, come down to Panorama Park, get some hot dogs with me and Ray Garcia.
All right. And if it wasn't for my granddaughter's birthday.
Yes. Feliz cumpleaños to Hugo's granddaughter.
I was going to plan to attend, but then somebody reminded me it was her birthday.
That's okay. You go enjoy family. That is what we're all about here on Hispanic Patriot Podcast. Viva la familia.
All right. Everyone, have a good night. And join us again next week for another action-packed show. We hope
you won't want to miss it.
Make some progress. And we're going to have a big announcement next week.
Big announcement. And we have our military month still, guys. Tomorrow, June 6th, for D-Day. Let's get started for military month.
Yep, absolutely. So good night. God bless America.
God bless America.
God bless all of you out there. Have a good summer. And let's just keep on trucking.
Viva.
Wrong button.
That's okay.
All right.